Good morning and happy Friday. Welcome to another episode of Think Good Thoughts. And today I'm really very reflective because it's Mother's Day weekend, and I'm very fortunate enough to have a very vibrant mom that I am looking forward to celebrating over the next few days. And as I thought about the weekend and I thought about my past week, I was starting to reflect more on how I got involved and why service is important to me. And so this is a little bit of a personal glimpse into my own story and my own family's story of getting involved in community and how hopefully we are passing and sharing that down to the next generation of our family. One of the things I realized, I had an interview this week and I was talking to somebody about what I do in the community, what boards I serve on. And what I realized was most important and what meant the most to me is that my husband and I made a commitment this year to volunteering together. And so we really did our homework and we landed on Big Brothers, Big Sisters of the greater Lehigh Valley. And this work that we're doing with Big Brothers, Big Sisters is so personally rewarding to us. It allows us once a month to go and interact with kids who have not yet been assigned bigs. And we have been developing relationships with these children over the course of the past year. And I'm hoping actually now to move from being a waitlisting volunteer to being an actual big for a little girl, Kiki, that I have sort of fallen in love with. But what I wanted to share about this experience is that it's so unlike anything else that I do in my work with nonprofits. And I think it's probably the most important thing that I do. First of all, it's something I do with my husband, and we both are very busy people, and we both are passionate about a lot of things, but this is really one thing that we can do together. So I really encourage you, especially and my friends that are empty nesters, to find something that you both like to do around a cause that you are passionate about. We both love children, and so this was really a good fit for us. But again, I wanted to talk a little bit about my own background, my own family history in volunteering. So as a small child, I remember my mother being out every Monday night. And where could she be every Monday night? And my father being also very busy on the weekends and for evening meetings as well. Well, as I grew up, I learned that my mother was the president of the Board of Education in our community. And she actively served this organization for quite some time. And my father was very involved with Easter Seals. And eventually my father became the national president of Easter Seals. So proud of what both of them have done to build better communities and to be passionate about kids and people with disabilities. And they passed that on to me pretty early in my life. They passed a spirit of volunteering on to me pretty early in my life. So I have memories of being around 8 and telling my mom, not asking her, telling my mom that I wanted to have a fair in our backyard. And the fair would be to raise money for Easter Seals. So it wasn't just like a lemonade stand. And I have pictures of this still. It was a whole backyard filled with all different kinds of activities that we charged for. And I do remember we raised around $500 for that particular cause that day. And it felt really good to give back. And so that was one of the first things that I did as a kid, learning a little bit about this world of volunteering. And really learning, my parents definitely modeled the way in this area. They definitely talked about the importance of giving back to the community. And as I've gotten older and I've started to get involved with organizations in a completely different way, I oftentimes hear people complaining, like, where's the next generation of volunteers? Where are the millennials? What are they doing? Why aren't they getting involved? And so I started to think about what was I doing when I was in my early 20s. And I remembered that, oh yes, I was raising a small child and finishing school during those times. But probably around 1995, I got personally interested in something called the Quilt Project, which was sponsored which was an enormous project that took the AIDS quilt across the country. And I learned about the quilt while working at Lafayette College, and I had seen a little portion of the quilt. And as a social worker and somebody who's been interested in social justice, and as somebody who was really touched always by a good story, I really got excited about the power of the quilt. And I became a volunteer with the quilt. And what did that mean? Well, it meant that I was leaving behind my 3-year-old daughter and my ex-husband at the time, no, he was my husband at the time, to go volunteer for the quilt. And I was sent to Syracuse, New York to set up a quilt display. And again, remember, I was just 30 at the time. And it was quite an experience to be part of such a big, huge national movement. And it had a huge impact on me. Being with the quilt, being with people that I didn't know was really quite a rewarding experience. And I stayed involved with the quilt for a bit of time. But I really, I see everybody that's on the call, we are all parents of millennials, and wondering when are they going to get out there and do their stuff. And again, I think what's important is how we model the way. And many of our children have grown up now in cultures where community service was mandated in high school. I never really thought that was a great idea. I don't know, for those of you who are live on the call today, if you think it's a good idea, but mandating kids to serve really kind of takes away the heart part of picking where you want to volunteer and filling your world with opportunities and then deciding what's important to you. So anyway, these kids have gotten some exposure to volunteering, but you wonder what happens between the time they're in high school and college to a little bit later. I think we need to be a little bit patient with them. And I think we need to keep offering them some time. One of the boards that I serve on now, Turning Point, has a young woman, a third generation of a very involved family in our community. And she's doing a great job running a committee and finding a lane for herself and figuring out what she's good at. So I think, again, a few things with this. Really thinking about, as an empty nesters, how you can approach volunteering differently. Now, I see my friend Ron is on the call, and my friend Ron is in the middle of a huge project. He's running right now to be the Leukemia Lymphoma Man of the Year. And so he is doing all sorts of cool things, and he has his whole family involved. My friend Paul, who's on this call, is a physician and has done incredible things in terms of medicine and giving back. So it feels nice to have my friends who are all engaged in service on this call too. And we're all empty nesters, but trying to find the lane for what makes you happy and brings you joy, and also helps an organization can be great. But the other piece of this that I wanted to share is that for my friends who are in this nonprofit world, I really encourage you to go back to the roots of volunteering. And this week at Big Brothers Big Sisters, I was reminded again of why we serve and how being in observation with other people that we love and we care for can be so helpful. And so just a really quick story about my girls this week. We were sitting and we were drawing, we were making prints, and there were 3 little girls lined up, and they were drawing away, and they started to have a conversation, which is not really a conversation that I ever hear adults have. And it went something like this. Hey, are you Puerto Rican? Are you Hispanic? Where are you from? Are you from Puerto Rico? Are you from the DR? Do your parents speak Spanish? Oh, okay, so, oh, all right, so you're from New York and your parents speak Spanish. And my parents are from the DR. Oh, that's so cool. Yep. And so all of a sudden, in the middle of this art activity, these kids were having this really interesting conversation about race and ethnicity. And there was no judgment. And there was just the curiosity of getting to know people that they didn't know. And I so loved that. And I was reminded, as somebody who does a lot of different kinds of service things in the Lehigh Valley, that, curiosity is important. And the neighborhoods we're serving are really diverse. And I need to pay attention to that. And we're not just talking about one kind of group of Hispanics in the Lehigh Valley, but we're talking about multiple layers of what it means to be Hispanic in the Lehigh Valley. So that was really an eye-opener for me. And it reminds me that it's so important to stay connected to our communities in real ways. It's one thing to serve on a board. which is wonderful. And it's one thing to donate money, which again, what would we do without our donors? But I do think that we're able to really go back to basics and get refreshed about the work we're doing. Every time I leave the waiting list club, I can't wait to edit my pictures. I can't wait to share my experience of volunteering. And it feels really good to not be in charge when I'm working with these kids and to experience their pure joy. So again, as we approach Mother's Day weekend, I encourage you to think about ways you can get involved, not just by yourself, but with your spouse, with your partner, with your kids. How can you really make service part of your family's DNA? And how can you then share it and pass it down and share it around with other people? I think we all have an opportunity to figure out what gets to us, what really matters in our lives. And I think there's no greater gift than we can give our children than to be part of a community of givers. And so thanks, Mom, for showing me and modeling the way to my brother and I that service is important and that taking care of the world and the people that live in it is important. And with that note, happy Mother's Day to all of my friends out there. And really think about generationally why we serve, generationally how we serve, and how we can create the next generation of difference makers. Have a great weekend and happy Think Good Friday.